Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Again, this is Dejanay Dominique with the Unspoken D word. So I didn't come on last week purposely because I was really excited about tonight. And I had to make sure I had all my conversation pieces together. So I am excited. Again, I am Dejanay Dominique. I am coming on with the Unspoken D word, dealing with divorce. We're going to talk all things divorce. So every kind of question, everything that you can think of, we're talking divorce. I have gone through a divorce, and I think I did pretty well. So I'm really excited about my special guest tonight, Pastor Eric Langston, which is my big brother. I brought. Can I call you Eric tonight? Are you sure? So I brought Eric on tonight, and I've been really looking forward to bringing Eric on due to the fact of when I went through my divorce, my brother was one of my voices in my ear. Doing this, I was reaching out for the little stuff, big stuff, small stuff. And I was really appreciative of how he handled me in that season. There was a no judgment zone, no nothing. Even when I see him today, like it still shows love and growth. So Eric, thank you for still being my big brother during the worst season of my life. But one of the things that we talked about all the time when I would call, he would say, don't post, don't respond, don't post, don't respond. I would be so upset, like, what you mean I can't say nothing? So I thought that was a great title tonight for this session, this conversation with my big brother on how to deal with holding your peace in the public during a public divorce. So I think this is about to be amazing. Don't forget to like, comment, share, talk to us in the comments. We can see everything. So I'm ready. You ready, bro?
I'm ready. I'm ready to do it.
So, okay. So hold the peace. What does that mean? Okay. So let's go. Let's make this personal. So when you were telling me to hold my peace in public because of my divorce, what exactly did you mean to the people? Like what made you say that, and what kind of stirred that to like, no, DJ, hold your peace?
So I think one of the first things about holding your peace is really the concept of people sometimes value and misjudge the term hold your peace. So
Okay.
a lot of times when people hear that, they assume that you don't have anything to say. But because you hold your peace does not mean that you're guilty. It means that you're choosing another route or another outcome. So in my divorce was extremely public,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a lot of noise on the other side. And I did not say much. I didn't say much at all, not because everything was accurate, but I knew that, my grandma would say, truth pressed down always comes to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I had too much to lose knowing that there is life after a divorce. And when you know that there's life after a divorce, you've got to hold your peace, because if you don't hold your peace, you will potentially forfeit what you have after the divorce.
That's good. That's good. So holding your peace will forfeit what you have after the divorce. So would you say going through your divorce, now, did you have moments where you felt like you needed to say something? Or did you have moments where you just was like, it's not worth it? Like, how did you deal with that? Like the feeling of, man, and I'm going through a divorce.
So I definitely had moments where I wanted to go off. I'm like, no, I'm going to say something because that's a lie. Da 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 da. But I'm going to be honest. One of the things that kept me the most grounded was my children,
Okay.
because the goal was, at the end of the day, I wanted to also be an example in front of them. And at the end of the day, even going through a divorce, she was still their mother. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I wanted to honor that, even though it was not reciprocated. So even though the honor was not reciprocated on my side, I wanted to honor the fact that they still have a relationship with their mother. Um, and respecting them in essence is respecting their mother. Now, there's a lot of people that kept me grounded because there's a lot of times I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to just say everything and just go ahead and just let these people have it one good time. But then I will be reminded that you don't come down for people. And sometimes when we're in the height of our anxiety and in the height of our emotions, we will come down to where people are. And that essentially makes it harder for us to bounce back from. So if I played into a narrative, it would potentially show the narrative to be true. But I knew that there were a lot of things that just were not true. And it's a hard pill to swallow when you know you have receipts and you have things to prove. And God says, don't say nothing. It's all right. That's a hard thing to do when you know that you could clap back and be right. But he still tells you to keep your peace and don't say anything.
Wow. So do you think so? Like we're both like let's get that out. Like we're church, and I know when I was going through my divorce, and it wasn't as public as yours, I don't think, but it was public, like church public, and I think church public is always the worst because it's like you have to continually go like each week, like and I know with me, I always say like I wasn't perfect, and I made some decisions that were not smart. Did you feel like, going to church, like, did you feel in that season of like, why am I here? Why am I here? I'm done. People are looking like, I know with me, it felt like everybody knew and people probably didn't know. I felt like I was looking over my shoulder all the time. Did you feel like, because you're a preacher, you know what I'm saying? Like, did you feel like that you had moments where it was like, wait, I'm not worthy of this season? Or, not like, why now? Or why does this have to happen now? Or did you just,
Mm-hmm. I think when I was going through the height of when it originally started, I was not up. So I was not preaching. I was not taking engagements. I took a sabbatical so that I could really work through some stuff. Also, I did not want to play into like just the church role of, oh, it's public, I have something to prove. So once when it became really public, I took a step back for a little while to just gather my thoughts to make sure that I was making rational decisions. Um, and then once I had gotten to the place where I knew, even with like the direction of my leader, that I was in a different place, I got back up into ministry. And with that being said, I learned a lot. Sometimes calamities will prove who people are,
yes,
even from a distance. So
good.
while there are people who we didn't really have much relationship with, or I didn't have much relationship with, there were a lot of people who proved themselves to me through that scenario.
Mm.
Um, so my eyes were open to a lot of people um, at that time because then I started being like, I don't know about you. But because I am very much of a people person, I know how to, and I've been in church all my life, I know how to speak and deal with people while also not trusting them. So I never threw shade at people. I just knew how to move forward and how to move accordingly. Um, because people will always, especially in a public divorce, people will always pick a narrative to go with, or they will pick both narrow narratives and they will straddle both sides of the fence
Mhm.
just for the sake of being in the know, just for the sake of feeling like they know what's going on.
See, I was different. I felt like with mine, I felt like, and what you said was so true, like about how people that I didn't even know knew me like that, knew my situation. It was like, but I've been posting all this other stuff, and you never said nothing until a post comes up or something like that happens, and it's like they're taking sides, and it's like, wait, you're taking a side of a situation you were never involved in. And I think that's what I try to help people with, is like finding an outlet that you can trust. Like, I know with me, I was in Atlanta. When I was reaching out to you, it was because it was like, okay, so my brother is definitely not going to say anything.
Mhm.
Our conversation, and I'm going to get complete honesty. Gonna be, because there were some days where you were like, just pack up and come home.
Mhm.
Like, that's not going to solve it. But I get what you were saying. Like, no, just pack up and come around people that like you can trust. So let's fast forward. So we always talk about there is life after divorce. And I know I'm starting a year and a half, almost 2 years later, I'm finally starting to live in life. Like, I feel like I'm living in a good life.
Mhm.
It's more peaceful, more restful. So my question to you is, and this is what I get all the time, so you're about to help me.
Okay.
How do you Okay, so just bear, because my internet be acting really
I was
crazy.
saying, is that me?
No, it's me. Sometimes my internet be acting really crazy sometimes, but it's
Okay.
only seconds. But like sometimes I feel like divorce is written on my forehead, because like you post a picture and people say it's too soon. You wear something and people are like, you're thirsty because you're single now. So like, how did you go into your after divorce life? And I'm gonna say, y'all, because y'all won't be tearing my inbox up. My bro is married. My bro is married now. So let's talk about that. Like, how did you know it was time to start like living a new life outside of the narrative of what divorce entitles?
Mhm.
As dating again, like what was your dating life like? How was that? And then we can talk about my beautiful sis.
Okay. So I think to answer that, one of my biggest lessons that I've learned with going through a public divorce is that even in a public setting and being a public figure, as it relates to being in ministry, one of the biggest things I've learned is that you got to keep people out of your business. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I grew up under the thought and a reason that I got married when I was 24. And the reason why I did that is because in ministry they're like, oh, you don't want to portray yourself to be promiscuous, and you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do X, Y, and Z. And while I made a decision to be married, I will say that the church, not a building, but the body of Christ, in terms of the makeup, in terms of what we look at as right or wrong, played into my decision, because I was not ready to get married when I got married. However, I felt like it was mandatory for me to continue to pursue ministry. And
Wow.
sometimes you will make rash decisions for temporary things. And because of that, my life became public. And the downfall of that is it was still public when I went through a divorce. But before you get to the divorce, there are things that happen that people will never know about. In every situation where there is a divorce, people will see the public side of it, but there's stuff that happened that is never told in those tell-alls about how you ended up where you got. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times there is a spiritual component to that, and we don't want to talk about that. We talk about incidents, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't really talk about like roots of the
Yeah,
issue of why we are where we are.
I agree. I agree. I know with us, that was definitely us. It was like once we got, and I know I was church, so I always knew to stick it in. Like, nope, this is just a season. You know how they tell people, like, if you make it to 5 years, you're good. If you make it past that, and then it was like we actually entered year 5. But it was just a lot of things happening, and it was like, okay, am I supposed to stay in this? Like, is this ministry? And I know as the woman, they would say, put oil on this clothes. I
Mhm.
will oil them clothes up and begin to pray. I was putting our names in like prayer listens and things, and it was like nothing was changing. And I know for a minute I was kind of embarrassed to divorce, as young as we are. I didn't know if I was moving too fast. I know I felt like, even like you said, we got married. It was a church thing. We both, worked in ministry. So people was like, y'all need to get married. And then, every time they would see him, it's like, so when you going to propose? when you gonna do this? When you gonna do this? So now, like, I find myself apologizing. Maybe I wouldn't have been in this situation. And I said this today. I said, we probably wouldn't have been divorced if we didn't rush to get married. Because if we would have stayed dating for longer, I think we would have broke up.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to say, but I think we would have ended things. And maybe I wasn't supposed to be divorced. That was something that the church put on us. But I know in
And that's
this,
the thing. Like, I think sometimes people will pressure you into situations that you don't have the capacity for. Um,
yes,
and in church, sometimes it's like, this is the right thing to do. So then there's the pressure of, or if, you know, you or his friends, a plethora of them are getting married or having children. So then it becomes, when are you going to have children?
do
When
it.
are you going to get married? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? And sometimes church will put unrealistic expectations on you, or people rather will put unrealistic expectations on you, and then would not want to walk in your shoes when you don't live up to those expectations.
And it's like you're a failure. Like, that's one thing that I was working on when I was in therapy. Was like, I felt like I had failed. Like, okay, so how am I only 30, 31, going through like this whole divorce? Like, did I do anything? Not knowing that it was normal. Like, I feel like the church allows us to stay in situations longer. And it's like, okay, so maybe I should have did this with the first red flag, or maybe. And I think that kind of has dwindled into like my life afterwards. Like, now it's like I think that whole, like, when people say, if you do this for people, that's a trigger for me, because I felt like I stayed in something longer for people's sake. So if people, anybody ever say like, you're doing this for people or something, like, that's the automatic like cutoff for DJ, because like, no, like, I'm not in a box, so you can't box me in. But I know, like, my after divorce life, like, how was that for you? Because I know with me it's hard, and I know it's probably different, like the male and female ish.
Mhm.
Because people always tell me, like, I know I've started to date, and people are like, it's too soon, you're not healed. And it's like, how do you know my timetable? Like, did you ever deal, like, how was that for you? Like, people say, don't go out and do this, and then it's like, but how do you know, like, where I am mentally? Like, how do you know what I recovered from? How do you know what I worked on behind the scenes to be able to tell me, like, the quote that I got all the time was, well, y'all was dating for 11 years, it's gonna take you 11 years to get over it. It's like, what? Like,
Yeah. I think people are ignorant. That's the first thing. Because people are ignorant from the sense of, most of the people that had a lot of public things to say about my public divorce were not married,
mm,
um, which is a whole nother issue, because sometimes people will be attracted to public things, only because it is actually something within them that they want. Or they have not been able to get to that place, so they doom everybody else that has gotten to that place. So you are not married, you've had several failed attempts in relationships, and they just haven't worked out. So because of that heaviness, then you begin to think through, watching other people's calamity as a spectator sport.
yes.
One of the worst things you could do is be a part of, um, someone else's calamity from a standpoint of thinking it's funny. Because I mean, they say it all the time, but it's true. Every dog has their day. Uh,
Yeah.
and it could be you today, it could be me today, and it could be you tomorrow. And one thing that it has shown me, is that I really protect my space. So at this point, it is a very, very hard thing. And I'm open to relationships and open to people. But when it comes to my personal space, I am very cautious, at this point, about who is in my space. Because some people who are in your space, you will see who they truly are at moments of public fall. Um, and that is just unfortunate, because people will never understand the detriment of a divorce or a public fall until you've ever actually experienced it. You can't talk to me about going through a public public issue, you can't say nothing to me about it if you've never been there, because it's a different posture. Um, I would not accept engagements. I would not do a lot of things that I should have been doing because it was over. However, I really allowed the people to really dictate my responses. It was not until I got delivered from people that I was then able to say, you know what, this is what it is. And one day you'll know the truth. Not necessarily from me, but you will see, because the Bible talks about their works, and your works will follow you.
Yes.
And a lot of times, I would preach and go home and be like, I don't know, because I don't. This is a lot for me. Um, and like to your point of even the topic tonight, he always kept saying, hold your peace, don't say nothing, hold your peace, hold your peace, hold your peace. And I'm like, well, I can say something. But hold your peace. Just really hold your peace. And that kept me, and then it also allowed me, once I had come through mentally where I knew what my capacity was, I started living in that. And when people know when people think they know your capacity, they can begin to dictate what they think you should be able to do. But when people are not walking in your shoes, they can't dictate.
They
They
can't.
can't. They can't dictate it.
That's so crazy. Like, I just feel like when it came to, so I know with me, when it says hold my peace for me, I didn't do that. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, even though you were saying that, I learned the hard way about holding my peace. Like, no, I didn't put things out on social media. But I had conversations that turned into other conversations that by the time it got back to me, it was like, I never said that. Like that
Mhm.
happened. So I learned the hard way of holding. So like when I took, and I'm gonna be honest, like, this is my bro, y'all. So Eric would be like, don't say anything, don't post anything. So I wouldn't post nothing. I wouldn't. I wouldn't respond to posts, but I did have like areas in my life that I thought were trusted, which is where I am now. Like now it's like I never thought that I would have to use discernment on a day to day on who to even talk to. Like, okay, whew, I can't trust it. Let me pray before I talk to you. And that's one of the things that has happened to me in the divorce. That's kind of not a bad thing, but now
Mhm.
I'm real cautious, like you said, of my space. Like I'm a loner now. Most of the time you'll see me by myself. I go places, but it's just something that I learned the hard way when it did not have to be ugly. I say in previous episodes, I wish we were like, as much as I say as I was mature, we didn't end our divorce maturely. So I wish we could have came to the table like, look, this is why we're leaving, leave each other out. It would have alleviated a lot of the middle person, the middle headaches, the middle arguments where we wasn't even talking. Like
Mhm.
people will come to me and say, he said this, I respond, and now I be thinking like he may not even have said that. Like so I wish that I had took those principles then of like people don't want to see your best interest. They see is that this is something big, this is a divorce. And I don't know why people's failures are big um to people, but I know they took mine and it hurt. So living in my divorce now is like it's happier, but it's more cautious. Like do you feel like that? Like do you feel like, I know you said like you like your people, but I know like we're your field,
Mhm.
principal, pastor, you have children, so like is it a trusted thing with people, or is that something you just deal with day by day?
I don't think I've lost my trust with people. I've
Hmm.
just become more alert of people. Because ultimately people can only have as much access to you as you allow. So while I mean I can walk into I've walked into services with people or been in places, and you couldn't tell those people that I wasn't their best friend. But we've never had a conversation. Like I like people, oh, that's my brother, that's my da 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 da. And that's fine. Like, okay, let's speak and let's talk. However, some of those people I didn't have a full convert, I don't have full relationship with. So I think a lot of us, especially in the Black church, we really misappropriate acquaintances with friends. So just because we are social media friends does
Doesn't mean
not mean that we are friends. So what I've learned is that I still give people the benefit of the doubt. However, I am cautious about my environment, and I'm cautious about my discernment kicks up real quick with people. So um, buzzwords and things that they may say will, if I get a red flag or my eyebrow goes up on them, I'm like, all right, like I got you. Like I hear you, but I also hear you. So I have begun to listen with a different ear too, and also check
that's good.
why people are coming. Like, what is your, like, who sent you? Like, what is your intention? Um, what is your intention here?
So side note, let's do a commercial break. You don't got all them brothers and sisters.
See,
Do we have to do this in public? What?
I'm just saying when I go out, I was like, people are like, that's and it's fine, but
Stop saying it's like, no, I'm playing.
people can't equate that. Like, you can't equate what we see on social media, and that is the thing. People love social media attention. And to your point, you said something about people love seeing other people's failures. That is because they have lived a life or of continual failures.
Mm-hmm.
And when you live under this realm of everything has not worked for me, you are attracted to when
That's
someone in the public then has something public happen, especially if you're like, oh, they just think that person is perfect. They think that person got this together. They think da 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 da. And then, like leeches, people start running towards the noise, because they like the crowd. They like the hustle and the bustle. We see that in church is also biblical. When Jesus was walking around healing people, one of the scriptures says that they came because they heard of the noise, like they
mm-hmm.
heard that he was around, and they wanted to see what this was all about. And sometimes people just want to see what it's about, so that then you can get into your group chats and get into your conversations about other people's realities. When truth be told, most of the people who are publicly entertained by it,
Mm-hmm.
something about that public fall is also about them. It just hasn't been exposed.
Wow, that's good. So let me ask you this: what did the healing process look like to Eric? Like, what was your healing process? What were your practices, your routines, your what did healing look like to you?
So one of the first things, not even from a spiritual perspective, but I went to counseling, um, and I purposely did not go to a Christian counselor.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I did not go to a quote unquote Christian counselor was because I wanted the raw truths and facts about what was going on with me. Now, Christian counseling, I 100% recommend it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I do not say that it doesn't work. I know for the state that I was in, I needed somebody to give me I have a pastor, I have people who I look up to in ministry that I can get that spiritual component from, but I needed a professional who didn't know nothing about me, didn't know nothing
Mm-hmm.
about my title, didn't know nothing about who I was, and just wanted to talk about Eric. Um, and that year and a half was probably the best time that I had, because I went to a white agnostic Jew. And he didn't get nothing about what I did, but he was able to say, "Nope, you wrong. This is da da da." And then he also forced me to go back into like my childhood in terms of. I just want to put this parenthetical statement out here, that. Divorces do not start. They do not start with the couple.
Wow,
Divorces
that's
come as a result of individual lived experiences that can't cohabitate together. So there was something about you that was not connecting with your ex-husband. And when those two things came together, it ended in a different way. There was something about me and my former wife where it was not a God idea. And what happens is we try to make our desires God's idea. And
mm.
marriage is God's idea, but many of our relationships are not God's idea. They are our ideas. And because they're ours, we take ownership of it, but it's not God's idea. So while divorce happened in that moment for us,
Mm-hmm.
there was something that was not tapped in from my childhood that could not cohabitate with things that was with her childhood.
That's
And
good.
because they were unresolved, everybody has the ability to have something inside of you that can throw you off.
Mm-hmm.
But if your partner does not complement your deficit, then it will go into another place. And if you are in a place where your partner does not complement your deficit, then it is automatically against God's idea, because God's idea for marriage is that you are a helper one to another. But if you cannot complement my area of help, and I cannot complement your area of help, we're already on a train that's heading to destruction.
Compliment my area of help.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Now you can compliment, you can look good. You know, people say, "Oh, you look so good together," but looks can be deceiving. So, like you look good together. You did but you cannot be jointly fit together. The Bible says that every joint supply, and it also says that you have to be equally yoked. Uh, and I understand people say, "Well, if you're a Muslim, you can't marry a Christian." I understand that, but some Christians should be marrying some other Christians.
true.
Because you just don't cohabitate together. And what happens is we like the face and the pomp and circumstance of church, but don't look at the look. The look will get you in trouble. Oh, y'all look nice together. That is nice. Oh, da 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 da. But there's another look outside of the look. And if you can't handle me, one of the biggest things I learned, and I share this all the time, if you think about marriage, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you say, what is the thing that you hate the most about your partner? And if they never change it, can you live with it? If your answer is no, then that is not the right person. If you and your worst, if I can't say with you in your worst, saying you if you won't change, then ultimately we're not in the same place. So if your deficit, if you never change your deficit, but I can't handle your deficit, I'm
We
always going to. And then some people, especially like our forefathers, we've seen more divorces in the church with the millennial generation than our
then
forefathers.
why do you think that is?
That's because, like, old school says, make it work.
Mm-hmm.
God will fix it. But I'm going to just pause here again and say, you can marry the wrong person. And I don't care what nobody says, you can marry the wrong person. Back to my point, if it's not God's idea, it's the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of our forefathers felt like I can't do this. However, they're still living single. They're just not publicly divorced. um, they're still doing their things, but they got a wife. But you can absolutely marry the wrong person. And some of my forefathers are unhappy as they want to be. However, they just don't want to go through
The divorce.
the divorce, so they'll live like that. And I was preaching about this yesterday. It is impossible to live in um, unstructured in structured chaos. Like, it is a bad place to embrace chaos as your normal. So to, like, my new point, like in the idea of like my new marriage, my experience is totally different, because I had to check myself because
Mm-hmm.
I was used to chaos. So I was looking for my life to be chaotic. I was looking for my marriage to be chaotic, and it's not normal. Chaos is not normal for any of us. It should not be normal. Our lived experience should not be chaotic. And because of that, I gained very bad habits. I didn't want to talk. I could walk around
Mm-hmm.
the house for a week and not speak to you and be okay with that. Because it was a normality. I had made it a normalcy where
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to be dysfunctional. And dysfunction is just a public display of what's internally going on with you as a person, not you as a spouse.
Whew, I can't wait to go back and watch this and write some notes because that was good. So let me ask you this. So, okay. So if there's somebody on here that is in a marriage, what would you tell them are the signs, when to go, what is normal? What is that conversation look like for that person that may be in a marriage and they're like, I don't know whether to stay, go. I don't know if this is right, if this is wrong. What would you tell them? What did it feel like to you? What, was there anything that you wish you would have moved on before, your divorce became a divorce? Like, do you think you should have left earlier, or like what would you tell them?
I think if we go back, I
Mm-hmm.
think I had to take ownership of a lot of the things that happened to me publicly, even though most of it was a lie. The reason why I had to take ownership of it was because I missed the first step. I ignored the first step, which was I knew I should not have gotten married, but I
Mm,
did it anyway. Because sometimes we'll get so engulfed with people that we'll forget about what God's idea is, or we're so engulfed in people that we'll forget about our happiness. And what happens is, oh, you want to clap and da da da, like my pictures, but you don't have to live with me. And that's a total different lived experience. I will tell people the first thing is that outside of love, they need to be your friend. Like 100%. But the flip side of that is sometimes we try to make our friends our spouses.
yes.
And because we're comfortable, we'll try to do that. But it's a special gift to have a spouse that is also your best friend. Your spouse should be your best friend. However, sometimes we make people something because it's convenient. But as it relates to like relationships, if you can't, the first thing is trust and prayer. If you can't trust the person that you have married, then that's the first thing that is a red flag of something that you need to reconsider. Because trust, if you don't know trust, you know nothing. And if you got to have your eye up on somebody every time, then you possibly wasting your time and living in an unhappy truth. There were times where I would sit in my car for hours so I didn't have to go in the house. And nobody wants to live like that. Like nobody wants to. The most peace that you have is when you're not in your house. That's not peace. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of the day, with prayer, you know when you know. And sometimes it's because of relationship, but you got to have trust. If you don't have trust, if you don't talk to the people, I just see somebody say love, trust, and communication. Like those three, like if you don't have those, it's not going to work. And you can fall in and out of love with people. However, it is not love that keeps you married. It is the work that keeps you married. You will evolve, your spouse will evolve, but it's the communication. You have to be honest. And when we are not honest, we then begin to do things like, I like you as a person,
But I don't.
but I don't like you as a wife or a husband. But I also don't want to run the risk of going through a public situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and find somewhere else to get my needs met.
Somebody just asked you a question. You
I-
see it?
Can trust be rebuilt after it's broken? I 100% believe that trust can be rebuilt after it's broken. However, if it's going to be rebuilt, it has to be a collaborative effort. And rebuilding trust does not mean that you make that person change who they are as a person to regain that trust. So, what I mean by that is if you've lost trust with somebody, let's say you just lost trust with them, and now the place that they have broken that trust, you become a detective opposed to actually trying to figure out the root or the source of the situation. It's never going to work. So if I know that you lied to me about something, if I am more concerned about every step that you take opposed to figuring out and helping you figure out why you lied and also how I played into why you had to have lied to me, it's never going to work. But if you can say, you know what, you're wrong. I don't trust you, but this is how we can build trust. Being a detective is not going to build your trust. Saying, bring your cell phone to me every night when you come in so I can go through your cell phone, that's not going to build trust. And just because you don't find nothing don't mean they ain't doing nothing. So you wasting your time. You need to actually have the hard conversation. Have the conversation and be like, listen, these are the things that have happened to me. This is my experience based off of what you did to me. These are the things that I need to feel secure. If they're not able to do that, then trust won't be rebuilt. But also the requests have to be realistic. Like you got to put a realistic request there. You can't just say, I'm putting this tracking device in your book bag so I can just know where you at all times. That's not going to get you what you want. That's just going to create another cycle of chaos. But you can actually rebuild trust. However, the right people have to be in the equation.
Bro, that's good. So, okay, so this person is going through a divorce, not saying anything. Because I know with me, I was going through, bro, you just said a whole lot. I just want you to know, like, I'm trying to that was good. That whole trust thing. Y'all, we coming. Just give me 1 second.
Leash, that's my friend. Leash, we're gonna come back to her because that's my friend. We got to answer her question.
Hold on. How do you heal from a divorce? Go ahead.
So, how do you heal from a divorce, especially seeing the man move on so fast? Well, that's a loaded question, Leash. I think one of the first things that I would say is that there is a world where you can be married and single at the same time.
That is the truth.
There's a world. So there's a world where legally and by living arrangement, you're married, but you can be married and separated and single at the same time. So sometimes if they moved on so quick, there could be multiple reasons. There's just could be multiple reasons why they move on so quick. However, it's possible that they weren't there
in the beginning.
And one thing that I've learned even through counseling is that you can cheat without what we call cheating. Cheating doesn't start at sex. And that is not the first step of cheating. If your mind is not connected to the person you're married to, and you feel like you have to talk to other people, not even in a relationship type, but you have to talk to other people to get your point across, you're already cheating it. Yes, you're already going out of covenant to get help. And if you can't get everything within there, in your mind, you're already there. And one of the first ways to heal when you see that your partner has is revalidating. Even if they did not move on publicly, it's revalidating, at least your value. So you got to revalidate your value. So that person doesn't deserve you. And typically we see on the long end that the people who left and tried to do X, Y, and Z and it doesn't tend to work out at the end. And when you are separated from that person, you realize that you were better without them. So you've got to really get an idea of like, my feelings may be hurt, but I'm more valuable than this. And not allow that to potentially damage the next relationship, as long as it's God's idea.
So divorce, after life, what would you, somebody going out into dating, what would you say? How do they know they're ready? How do they know? We're not going to leave people out because, sometimes you'll say people think like, what would you say about that whole dating phase of if they're on here and they're trying to go through dating or trying to step out?
So I think that one of the first things is to really realize and understand that while a lot of times our ex-spouses or so have their deficits and just their shortcomings, you have to be mature to look back and say, all right, now I'm gonna throw some of this out in the garbage, but some of that stuff that they said about me, let me do some soul searching. Let me
Mhm.
really figure out what it is about me. Because even if you're not honest with that person, it's possible that somebody else has said that to you in another relationship.
Mhm.
And then it makes you have to be like, you know what? Let me figure this out. So I really feel like as a person, you have to really do a self evaluation about what you have experienced and what people have experienced at your hand, and figure out what you need to do to make sure that you're not duplicating that. So you really got to make sure, like, all right, somebody says that you're not trustworthy. Um, and several people have said that. Then you got to figure out, why aren't you trustworthy? And before you bring somebody else into that, you've got to figure out, what am I doing that all these people are thinking that I'm not worthy? They can't trust me.
I can answer her question first, and then you can go.
Okay,
Um,
go.
so
Praise the
Lee,
Lord, Lauren.
right? Hey, Lauren. So I know with me, Leash, I started dating right away after the divorce. It didn't work because I was trying to fill the void that I wasn't trying to step into reality of what had happened. So I wanted people to think like, oh, she this bad girl, like she's this boss girl, like nothing affected her. And I was finding myself going in a relationship, coming out, and it was like the same cycles, the same cycles, the same cycles. So what I had to do was literally step back and take my healing serious. When I started taking my healing serious, I started to learn my value all over. Like Eric stated, I started to know like, okay, let me step out and see myself as God sees me and not what people labeled me as or what I thought I was or while I was actually going into these relationships. And I started spending more time with myself. I started actually listening to my therapist instead of there's some things you listen to and then there's some things you're like, wait a minute. But when I started getting even hurt more in the relationships that I was in after my divorce, it was like, okay, wait, something's not right and it has to be me. And then I started learning what it was about me as to why. And it was because I was trying to suppress that, but it was still like I had expectations for them that is like, okay, why am I putting this on you and I didn't even have that on him? So I would say definitely heal first, because if you're getting triggered by anything that has to do with your divorce, it sometimes means that you're not completely healed from it. And that's only because I know that's what I went through.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what you'll say, bro, but I think that's just was my thing when I was in these relationships after marriage, and I was mad because he moved on so quick, and I'm like, why am I in and out? Like it's like in 1 minute, and literally these will be the fastest relationships ever. And then I just had to do some soul searching, like, okay, here's your value. Like I had to start at ground one.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think at least one of the first things that you have to do is also reclaim your power, right? One of the worst things that we do when we're going through a divorce is that we lose the power of who we are
Mm-hmm.
and what we have the capability of. Um, when I realized that the other person was like really just living their best life, and not just living their best life, but just doing a bunch of things, I'm just like, okay. Um, I realized that I had given that person enough power when we were together.
Mm,
Was not going to continue to give them the power after we were divorced. And one of the reasons why people get stuck is because you are living, but that person still has the key to your power.
mm-hmm.
So even like co-parenting, for a long time, I had to work on that because I would get triggered, because I felt like they were inserting power on me, and it would trigger me. Now, as it relates to knowing if you're healed or not, you're the one that will know if you're ready. But what I did learn after that is that it's important to be blunt with people, like unapologetically blunt with people after a divorce. If you are looking to go into a relationship with them, and you have to be unapologetic about what you want, what you're looking for, and if that person fits that mold or not. um, so trying dating is not the issue. The issue is how transparent are you in the process. uh, because sometimes you just want a friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that may not actually be the person. Like you may be a friend for me, get me through. I don't really want no, I don't want much. Somebody I can talk to, but I don't not looking for much. So I really think it depends on what you're looking for. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you gotta take your time. Um, Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not. Um, I had never lived by myself until I got divorced. So it was a major adjustment for me because I went from like high school to college to marriage. So my first time living by myself was post divorce. And that was different for me, especially after my kids on the 50-50 custody. I was in the house by myself going through a divorce. A real public one, and it was a lot for me. And I learned a lot about me, and I didn't rush the process, but a lot of things triggered me. And that's because it was stuff about me that I had not 100% fully agreed to agree with.
And that's the crazy part. I think that's where I am now. Whew, that live by yourself stage and starting all over is not for the like. There are days I have moments like as healed as I am. Like you have moments where you're like, oh, I'm really by myself, and then you go out, and then you're like, I want to go back in, but you're by yourself, so you go through like these. I know I go back and forth where it's like there are some days where it's like you want company, and then it's days where it's like,
No way. Right.
like I like this too much.
Mhm.
But it's definitely whew, that after like you know what I told somebody, I said Valentine's. So this was the third Valentine's Day by myself. But this Valentine's Day hurt more because I felt like this was my first healed Valentine's Day. So it was like the other two, you know, when you're going through stuff and you like, these is the first holidays, like it is what it is, like, you know, you on this. But when you actually are like healed from something and like this is you accepted your new normal, then it was like, oh shoot, like I'm really don't have no date, no exes, no
Mhm. Yeah.
no nothing. And I feel like you go through that with a divorce, but it's healthy. Like I feel like that it teaches like my alone time, like you said, Eric,
Mhm.
teaches me more of like now I know what I like and what I don't like.
Yep.
What willing to accept what I'm not. Like I feel like whatever is next, like I won't have to say like, oh, let me settle and let me just do this because like if I don't like it now, it's like it's a no. Like
Yeah.
before, like, you know what, I may go and I may not really want Outback, but I'm gonna go because, and it's like, no, like when you invest a lot and discovering yourself, loving yourself, knowing your mental, what you put your mental through, it's like, that's not even worthy of my time or my
It's
space
not.
or in you having my number, like going out on a date. You'll start to notice that those dates are like, okay, I'm not doing this. I don't see this going far. Like I can pay for my own free meal. Like,
Mhm. And I will tell you another thing that is important to note here is that it's different if you have children,
okay.
because if you have children, you now are not just considering yourself, but you're also considering and also being thoughtful about who you're bringing around your children.
That's
So
good.
you're not, if it's just like a real quick, you my friend, like we cool, we good. You can come over sometime. You can do this, da 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 da. But if I have kids, if you have children, you should be cautious about who you bring around your children, whether they boy or girls. But children throw a different aspect into divorce. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so while you may want to be okay, I'm over it, I'm public, you have to still date privately for your children's sake. So even after a public divorce, even after a private divorce, your public dating transitions to private dating when it comes to your kids, because everybody can't be around my babies. Because if you're not long term, you're not coming around my children, for multiple reasons. But that throws in a different idea of what dating looks like. Dating for someone who is divorced but no children looks different than dating after divorce for people who co-parent or have 100% custody of their children, because you're not just thinking for yourself. You're not making a move for yourself. You're making a move for your children as well. Whether you're a male with children, you with female children or male children, you still want to set an example for your children, so that there's not a revolving door of people coming up in your house, meeting your kids, and then they ask, "Where's this person at? Where's the?" Um, because you got to be careful with that. You cannot just get comfortable to the point where you let your guard down for your babies.
So let me ask you this, bro. So, so I know you're like, y'all, my brother is married now. Like, I love it. So when it comes to like marriage and dating, how would you say, how often do you bring up like when it's just y'all two talking, like no kids? Do you bring up like your divorce or your past experiences often, or is that something that's like you don't talk about, or that you shouldn't talk about your past? Like, when do you let that part of you go? Like, okay, that I was divorced. I no longer, like, did you still bring it up while you were still like in the dating phase, going through different things, or when did you like really stop talking about it?
So I don't think that I really focus on divorce.
Okay.
Um, More so the triggers that I had because of the divorce. So those things are common conversation, because you need to. It is healthy to share your triggers. Uh,
Okay.
it is healthy to know what makes you tick or what doesn't make you tick. So I use all of my experiences as healthy dialogue, as education, for her and for me. Like, I'm educating. No one can educate someone about you better than you. So the idea is I'm sharing with you what works for me, and then I want to hear from you what works for you, and then the goal is to figure out how this all works together. So I want to share my triggers that I've learned, and so that X, Y, and Z. I want you to share your triggers with me, so I know what to do or what not to do. And you can't talk about that without talking about past experiences. But I don't harp on, well, in my other marriage, da, 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 da. No, that's not what I do. It's more so like, these things work for me, and then how can we come together and like make it work for all of us.
I like that. So to answer Lee's question, she got good questions. I love it. Keep bringing them on. So yes, I lost friends. I started all over. But also because we were together for a long time, a lot of our friends were like married friends, or friends that we got together. And because I wasn't as open and honest to why I divorced, I kind of looked like the bad guy. So I lost, like, I'm starting all over. Like, I have started completely over. That hurt me a lot because I know now how to be a friend to people that's going through a divorce. Not to pick sides. Like, it's not your job to pick a side. That's not your business. Sorry, y'all. It's not your business. So I lost a lot of friends, and then I'm going to be honest. The friends that I didn't lose that were mutually, I cut a lot of people off too, because I didn't feel like people would understand where I was, why I made the decisions that I made. So I did. I lost a lot. I'm rebuilding now, but I did. So some of it was my fault. Some of it wasn't my fault.
I lost a lot of friends too, and I'm actually glad I did. So I think
Agree.
that,
Agree.
um, and I also think that I have learned a different lesson, right? Um,
Hmm.
of before my situation, people would come say, "Oh, X, Y, Z," you know what I'm saying? Oh, I don't know that, and then you just get the buzz, right? I have a different experience now,
Woo.
that there was a point where I was the buzz. So now when people, I just be like, nope, I ain't taking sides, because I was not in those people's houses. Did you hear that? Yep, I did hear that. Da, 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 da. I don't have nothing to say about it, and I actually have no comment, because you don't know what it's like to be in that position.
no.
You don't know. We see the public display of it, but there is a bunch of stuff that will never hit the public eye or public ear. And now I have a different respect for staying neutral in situations that I have nothing to what that I know nothing about outside of what social media portrays. And we just live in such a sick, toxic culture where you heard somebody married, you go to their Instagram page and start saying, are they posting their wife? Or did they got rings on?
Put together.
Are they still together? Because I heard this, and you start putting your narratives together prior to. But once you've sat in that seat, you have a different conviction about how you look at other people's situation. When I hear about people going through public divorces or public scandal, I'd really be like, yo, I'm praying for them because
Yes.
I know what that feels like. I've lost friends who I do know now weren't my friends uh,
Mm-hmm.
because
I
with
agree.
real friends are not determined. I say this all the time when I'm preaching. Real friends are not determined at your pinnacle of success. Real friends are determined when you are at life's bottom. And if you can rock with me and be consistent, and real friends will tell you, I ain't here to pick sides. I'm
Mm-hmm.
here to be here for you. Then you got those people that will know the truth. So they're like, no, they did wrong for da 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 da. But their job is not to coddle you
I agree.
and make you feel better. The job is to protect you until you can protect yourself.
Yeah, I learned that friend thing was that thing ate me up, and it was because I didn't. Now I know, like, I have friends that are going through divorce, and my job is to, when I see him, to still speak when I see her, because that was the worst thing in my life, to have people cut you off and you be like, wait, we was all friends, or you feel like the out, like you're the bad person, so everybody treats you like, no, we're going to invite him. Like, that happened to me, being though we were in the same church. They would have stuff and they would say, well, because he's coming, you know we're not going to invite you because we don't want it to be awkward. Well, it's not going to be awkward, like, we're adults.
Mhm.
So I felt like, I was kind of left out a lot, which was my friendships. But I'm so glad, because now I'm like, if you can't, like you said, if you can't handle me now, this Dejanay is like, you don't deserve access to this person that I worked so hard for. And that's also them learning, like, you're a different person. Like, I know I had friends that I cut off because they were like, you didn't call us, you didn't. And it's like, not about to call y'all. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not. And they were upset. So it's like, you're taking my issue and now it's personal to you, and it's not personal.
Right.
I never been through a divorce, so I can't tell you I was going to call you, or
Mhm.
I still wanted to go out. Like, you should have been supportive. So I
Yeah.
was cutting left and right.
Mhm.
Oh, you did this? Like, I was done. But it was because it was so much stuff. And like you said, I'm very sensitive to stuff that's on social media. That's sharing stuff. Until you are in a social media scandal, divorce, whatever, I see stuff now and I'm like, I'm not sharing. I don't have nothing to
I
do with that.
have to say with that.
That thing hurts. Like, I was in therapy alone for what social media did to me. Like,
Yeah. Social media probably just made everything worse.
worse.
Because people can use this platform for positive or they can use it for negative. Um, and I had to really learn that because I continue to use social media for the platform that I had always used it for. Uh,
Hmm.
but that was not the case on all sides. And it was just unfortunate because social media people love buzz, and then and then a lot, and then also, and it doesn't matter if you're male or female, if you are going through a public divorce with someone who is a public figure,
Hmm.
a lot of times the noise comes from people who want a platform that they don't have. So if one spouse does not have a platform, that ex-spouse, they will make a platform. The only issue about that is when you make a platform on a lie, it is bound to crumble. And when you make a platform on truth, then you will live through it. And I decided to not build a platform on somebody else's truth. But I was a byproduct of platforms being made because they did not have a platform prior to that. Um, so unfortunately, social media became a part of my divorce because the other person made social media a part of the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when people go public like that and they are a part of it, it is to get a voice that they did not have, and a voice that would not have been sought after if it wasn't attached to foolishness. So you also got to be careful with that too, because people will use lies to build platforms.
That
But
is true.
when those platforms, when the smoke clears and the dust settles, if those platforms don't stand, a lot of people, and I'm gonna tell you this part too, there's a lot of people that owe me an apology. However,
Whew,
I
Lord.
don't even expect it because I've already forgiven them. Because a lot of people jumped on a false bandwagon, and now years later, the evidence, the proof is in the pudding. And I held my peace when I should have went completely off, and my platform is still intact. And I also say this, if my influence would have been killed, it would have been killed several years ago. If anything, my influence has increased, because God will never let it go down like that. When you, because sometimes there's only three people that know the truth: you, that person, and God. And what you say on social media ain't always the truth. It's just to get likes, um, and then try to turn it into um, something else to potentially get money, all types of things. But I have to forgive those people who I know can't look me in my face today because they were absolutely wrong. And they'll never come back. They'll never come back, but I've already forgiven them. Um, Esther, she ain't forgiven them yet. I had to let it go. Because I'm like, you know what, I know for sure that, and I would get out of the pulpit and people would say, yo, you ain't say nothing yet. I'm like, no, I have nothing to say. um you ain't gonna go. And I went live one time,
One
and the
time.
one time that I went live, it was not a tell-all. I didn't get on to expose nobody. And there was over 200 people in that live at one point. And by the end of the night, it was like 5,000 views on it because people just thought that I was going to get on there and rip that woman apart. And if anything, I use it as a ministry opportunity to show people that there's a way to go through something publicly and still keep your integrity.
I get it now. I can definitely say we've learned tonight, like the social media, leave it alone. Leave it alone during your divorce. If you're going through it, if you're having issues in your marriage, um, leave it alone. I know with me, I will post prematurely. Like I will post again, this was before like I really accepted the fact to go to therapy, but I would post just to show like I was good after the divorce. Like, oh, I'm good. I was be smiling and stuff, hurting and upset and confused. Leave social media alone. Leave it alone. What does it mean when you and your ex sexually connect again months after the divorce? Oh, that's
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I haven't did that. Never. I don't think that's ever
Don't do it. Because if you're divorced, is a reason why you're divorced. Um, and sex can't fix it. If anything, it complicates it, and possibly, Leash, that may be why it's hard to move on.
mm-hmm.
Because after the divorce, when you go back into that sexual component, I don't want to go spiritual with it too much, but like there's a soul tie, um, that goes. There's a soul tie that goes with that. So
Mm-hmm.
while you're physically apart, while you are divorced, then you then come into covenant with them again through intercourse. And when you come into that covenant again, you are coming into another sense of attachment. And that person, it may be momentarily for them. However, that connection for you is lasting. And sex can't fix what is not in the heart. It will give you a moment of gratification, but it will not fix the other stuff. And that is the problem. It really hurts. So it doesn't, like, you've done it, but just don't do it again. Just don't do that again, unless you know that it was going to, unless you have come to an agreement, which, if you've gotten to a divorce, it's very unlikely that you're going to come to that agreement. um but
No.
um that is like Ash is saying, like, it can't fix what's not God's idea. I don't care how many times you have sex. If it's not God's idea, it will be moments of gratification and satisfaction, and then one of the people always leaves with the emotional attachment.
Like,
The
this is
other person can leave that house and go do it again with somebody else and
and
go
this,
to sleep that night and be like, I'm good. But one person, there's a 50% chance in every situation that one person is not going to just have sex, but they are now connected again with that person. And then once you connect sexually with them, you've also connected with all the other people that they didn't have sex with. And that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
ooh,
And then the idea of, like, that idea, I don't want you, I want to hit that. And because emotional, you'll do things, and then you out here looking crazy because you're imbalanced.
I see. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't trying to have sex, but I was trying to do other stuff to keep them attached.
Mhm.
But it wasn't. I didn't want. I don't think I wanted them after that, the divorce, because it was so bad. But I
Mhm.
didn't want to let go though. Like, I definitely was one that was afraid. I was really afraid of him moving on. Like,
Mhm.
I was afraid of him moving on, treating them better than all the work that I had put in. But now I was like,
Yeah.
but I wasn't trying. I didn't want. I wasn't trying to do that.
And then sometimes it becomes comfortable. So, like, Alicia's saying, like, 20 years is a long time.
That's a long.
You in a relationship for 20 years, you are susceptible to doing some crazy things, and then you get mad at yourself at the end because it's like, I'm too old and you should value me more than just a sneaky link. And if they can downgrade the experience to a sneaky link, then we shouldn't be together
We
at
should.
all. You should have any access to me.
Let me ask you this. This will probably wrap it up. I bring you on for another week.
Sure, sure.
This is a good question. So, were you disappointed in the reaction that you got from your former spouse during the divorce, or was this something that you kind of expected?
That's a
Like, were
great
you the value the
That's a great question. I wasn't surprised at all.
okay,
Because we as people ignore things that we see.
okay,
Um, the people were surprised, but I wasn't surprised because there were many public situations where I saw her capacity and her capability.
okay,
So when it happened, um, I knew that I wasn't surprised. I said, well, let me buckle up because I know. And then, like I said, and I said this a little earlier, but when people want your platform,
hmm
they will try their best to destroy it while trying to build theirs. So everything she did, I could not say I'm surprised.
okay,
There's only one thing she did. Um, There's only one thing she did that really threw me off, and I feel comfortable to share it. Everybody knows that I love my daughters,
hmm
and they my people, and we share 50-50 custody. However, for a phase, and I don't have to do it anymore because truth pressed down will always come to the top. But for a
hmm
phase, she took me to child support court, and I couldn't absolutely believe it. That's the only thing that she ever did. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And because I held my peace. That didn't last long at all. But other than that, I wasn't surprised because you know people's capabilities secretly. So I knew, um, like I knew I knew her capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what she would do privately that I just dealt with. And if I would have listened, I would have not had to experience certain things. But it's unfortunate. I wish I was surprised. I think I would have been able to tolerate it a little more. I think I would not have been. Um, I
You,
think I would have felt better if I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised.
you know what the crazy thing, and this is really crazy with me saying this. When I went through my divorce, I thought, how can I say this? I thought that I didn't think he would have acted like that. I had it in my mind. I thought this is just DJ's mind. Okay, don't judge me, y'all. I thought that we would have been able to be friends after this. Our families were still. So it really was a culture shock to know that like I literally lost his family too. Like I really thought they was gonna stay like my people. I thought like I was still gonna have sis and bros and like they like cut me completely completely off. And that hurt me even more because I had in this mindset of like we were going to get divorced, but like we still probably would have been friends or still, like my family would have been his family, like, and that hurt when I realized that like I lost the whole family for
Mhm.
that hurt me. That
That did
hurt.
hurt me.
And I did not know they was gonna treat me like that. I was like, y'all just was loving on me. Like,
It hurt me. I expected. I said let everybody just go with them. Like there was like a thing for me. Leash, I can answer that question. And just going through it a little bit, I think one of the first things that plays into just the unequally yoked piece is your last sentence, right? Like, he didn't believe the
mm,
way that you believe. Um, and ultimately, you cannot be in covenant with people who don't agree with who what you believe in. Now, there's some things that you may not always agree with, but
mhm,
if we can't agree that God is God, and that he is capable, then that is 99.9% of the battle. And it can't work.
mm,
Um, and one of the biggest things, the one of the biggest ways, because I went through a public divorce and I was a public figure, um, it was it was intentional about how I rebuilt my relationship with God. Because not only did I go through a divorce, but I still had to preach. I still had to
mhm.
minister to people.
The
Um,
people.
and people were still wanting to hear what God had to say through me. And I felt like I was not worthy. I felt like I had one church in my, and it took me a couple of years to get out my feelings. But when I was going through my divorce, one church canceled on me, and that thing really bothered me. I probably just got over that last year because I'm like, I've been uninvited to better places. Like I was just like, I was really a little thrown off by that. But then I was like, you know what? It's cool. It makes sense. But I had to really, I talk to God like I'm talking on this live tonight. Um, like I literally be like, yo, I need help. Like you need to
Li-
help me with this. Um, I'm mad. I'm upset. Why? Um, and then God said to me, why not? Why not? And I'm gonna tell you this, Leash. I um was very successful when I got married. When I got married, like my professional career was like it was on a fast train. Um, and I just felt like I felt like I reached a level of success. Um, and I felt like, I was on track. Um, and I thought I had arrived. I thought like I finally made it, professionally, not in church. And going through the divorce and praying and all those things, what I had then doesn't compare to what God has given me now. My life is on a total different level now, after divorce. But I am so transparent with God. Like, yo, you need to help me with this, because if you don't help me with this, and I kept my peace. The reason why God blessed me, like God had to bless me the way He blessed me, because I experienced the public betrayal and the public deceit and the public lies, and I kept my mouth shut. God owed me one. And He told me that if I kept my peace, and everybody that's in my circle knows that the hand of the Lord is on my life
Oh,
across the board, not just in church, but in corporate America. The hand of the Lord, everything I touch, God blesses it. And you can't have that if everything is a lie. If everything they said was true, God would not be God, because He has never taken His hand off of me. He's never, ever taken His hands off of me. And if anything, He's intensified what He's given me, even tangibly, because when you're silent, and my relationship with Him is top tier. Like, I'm like, Lord, I
it is.
want that. It's top, like, literally, He gives me whatever I want. And you can't tell me that I am this negative, evil, narcissistic person that was put out there, and God still blessed me like this. And now, when you look at both of our situations,
You'll be able to tell. So we're going to have to end. When can I bring you back? We'll talk about this after this go on.
and
But
at
in,
first they try to call me back, I was booked.
so like to end publicly, like y'all already know, like if y'all are my close friends, everybody knows about the Langstons. Like if y'all are going through a divorce or something, follow him, because that was my inspiration. Like I would reach out, bro, tell him I would reach out with the stupidest stuff,
Mhm.
same stuff, crying and stuff. And like that's how I got to how I am today. Like just stand in prayer, just the little things. And even now, I didn't think I was gonna get married, but Eric has definitely put it in me like you can be married. Like you can do this again. It like nothing it's so worse. So, I thank you publicly, privately. I always thank y'all.
Mhm.
I love the Langstons. Everybody knows that. But I say follow him, y'all. Now don't be overwhelming him but definitely follow him. Like I love my brother. Like everything is I am how this platform because of the conversations that we had. I mean, he talked me off the edge a couple of times, and that's why I'm back. He will always say, "Ugh, just pack up and come home." And
Mhm.
what? Y'all know I'm hard headed. Was I
Yeah.
hard headed, bro?
And sometimes I don't think you were hard headed. I think what happens is, um, Ash, I believe you. I 100% believe you. I think that the issue is sometimes we are scared to move out. And then the worst thing about public divorce is sometimes we are scared to live. One of the things that I've learned is that my life's an open book, and my life is absolutely amazing. However, I chose when I decided to share my life with social media. So yeah, I just popped up one day and posted my picture, and I was married. Like
Yeah,
you didn't have to know nothing, because it's not your business. And that's it. And I think sometimes you got to make a big pivot, and I am so delivered from people at this point. um it's a real thing. Like, people will bind you up, and people will put you in a space where you are questioning if you can be happy again. You can recover after divorce, and you can actually have a better life. And your next experience does not have to be, it will be totally different. My lived experience this time is totally different than like, based off of what I know now, I wasn't married before. Legally, I was, but the intent of marriage, I wasn't. I was, I was in bondage. Um,
Jesus.
and it wasn't, and watch this, it wasn't because of her. I was in bondage because I made a choice. Like, it just, um it's different. I set myself up for failure because nobody put a gun to my head and said get married. I was just trying to do the right thing. And you can live after divorce. Like people say, do you think everybody can get married? Some people should have never been married. Some people, marriage is not for everybody, but I
Hmm.
do believe that you can find love again. And I do believe that it can be a different lived experience because what I experience now is not what I experienced before in my first marriage. I don't know what that was. It was not God's idea. Um, it wasn't. At least Jabari put us together. That's my guy. He's my favorite person. And I think people like on the line have to really just be comfortable with knowing your truth and also telling people what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. Like what I'm going to be and what I'm not. Where what I'm going to allow and what I'm not going to allow. Like I know now what I can tolerate and what I can't tolerate. And if you in any type of relationship where you gotta be scared to talk,
Hmm.
scared to ask questions, scared to go outside without your spouse, living like a slave almost to yourself because you're scared to be yourself. If a person is not going to allow you to flourish as a person and you have to dummy down to walk out their agenda, it's not right. Before even marriage, you shouldn't even be talking to them. If you
I,
can't compliment me, then we not even getting to the point where I actually am thinking about spending the rest of my life with you.
this was good. This was good. This was good. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Really, really enjoyed this. This was good. I'm definitely gonna watch this again. Um, guys, we are gonna bring Pastor Langston back on here.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back, and we can just do like an open forum and just
Yeah,
conversation. Because I also think that one of the other issues is that they don't talk about divorce in church.
they don't.
It's not normalized to have the conversation. Um, and I'm going to tell you this: like that idea of like just God gonna fix it. That don't work like that. If you know that He can fix it if it's the right person, but God's never going to fix what He didn't say yes to. So if you're like, oh, what am I gonna do? Just keep praying, girl. Keep praying, child. God gonna fix it. God gonna fix it. Um, no. But if he never actually said yes to it, how is he going? He's never gonna fix what he didn't say yes to.
Ooh, you know what? It was crazy. Now that we talking about this, so when what I learned in church divorce, I had people that told me to divorce that I watched fight for their marriage in church, and that was hurtful. Like y'all was so gung ho on like, no, you deserve better, or fix it, and then I watched them fight for their marriage, and it was like I feel like church doesn't give us the realistic of what divorce is. Like I'm not joining the singles ministry, but I'm not in the marriage ministry. Like
Mm-hmm.
where's the in between? Like for real. Yes, that's what
And
we
then like
part.
what's the idea of like ministering to me as a person and not just ministering to me as a husband or a wife, ministering to me and giving me godly counsel, but also being like you. Sometimes we talk about all the things, but what if God didn't allow it? We are the only people that asks God to fix stuff that He didn't break.
Mm,
And he didn't like this, and that's why another reason why I had to hold my peace because I couldn't go off like I wanted to because it was my fault. Like it was, I played a part in it, even by agreeing to it. Like I played a role, so I couldn't get on and play the victim when I had to take that because I made a covenant that God told me not to make. And one day I was preaching and I actually cut the live off because I literally like God said to me in the middle of preaching, like you had to go through that because I had to teach you a lesson of what happens when you don't listen to me.
when you don't
And it's
listen.
gonna be better for you. And that thing hit me like a ton of bricks because I'm just like, yo, what? Like for real? And he's like, no, I didn't say yes to that. And there are consequences. And I relate I walk with God like I walk in the house, like with my children. When I tell my kids, don't do something because there's a consequence for that, and they go ahead and do it, and then they get hurt, my response typically is, I told you so. Like, I told you not to run down those steps because you're going to bust your head. I told you not to try to jump up and climb in those cabinets because you're going to fall. So before I actually heal them or help them, I remind them that I told them not to do it and make them take accountability for not listening to me.
Listen, so okay, so next week we are going to talk the consequences of I do. Okay. But before you hang up, well, you just said something that's so funny. So my aunt, and I know she doesn't mind because she shares this all the time.
Mhm.
She church. She got married and then her husband had passed away. She was grieving and stuff, and she was saying God told her like I wasn't supposed to be a widow. Like you weren't supposed to marry him. So this is the consequence of you marrying him, and now your ministry has to go in a whole nother direction because now you have to minister as a widow and you were never supposed to be one. Okay, so is that our topic? Are you coming on next week?
I can come on next week because I'm gonna say this and then I'm done with y'all. I'm done with it tonight. Because the thing is, another part about it is that sometimes God will put people in your life for an assignment, and sometimes you'll keep people in your life after their assignment has been expired, which means that I 100% believe that I was supposed to have my children.
Mm-hmm.
However, after that assignment was done,
It was supposed to be a wrap.
it was supposed to be a wrap. Now, if it would have happened before and I had to go through just you doing this, you had all that other kind of stuff, possibly. But sometimes we keep people in our lives longer than their assignment has called for them to be.
That's good.
Yeah, and I stayed too long. Right, Ash. So what happens is I literally stayed too long, and that's from dating to marriage. I stayed too long, and there's a consequence for staying too long because when you stay too long, you get comfortable. So I started thinking about, well, if I don't feel like starting over again. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go through this again. I gotta try this all over again. And sometimes, just like if you are older, you get bed sores, it's because you haven't been moved, and you get like accustomed to the pain. And that's a whole nother conversation. You can get accustomed to the pain where you're like, this is normal. It's normal for me to be treated wrong. It's normal for me to feel offended. It's normal for me to be disrespected. It's normal for me to be emasculated. It's normal for me to feel like I am just whatever you say I am, and I'm only that. And I stay too long.
Okay. So y'all already know part 2 is next week. Okay. Hit me with all the questions, everything. So don't y'all lose this stuff. Start writing in my inbox now. So that Pastor Eric, I'm just coming on to listen. Like you just consequences of I do. So you prepare it like you preparing a sermon, okay?
I got you. We can do a whole
This,
thing.
y'all like this? Like put this in the comments for real. Like I know y'all going off. Everybody is
If you enjoy this tonight, let us know.
yeah, it's like first of all, the people are ready for next week already. I don't know if you see the comments.
Because we gotta I think it's normal. Like we talk about everything but the things that actually make us better
Mm-hmm.
in church. There's life outside of the pulpit. And people need to help. Like, let's talk about it. Because some people suffer in silence. I was one of those. And now, and I promise to God, this is the last thing I will say. Now I can because I was in a dysfunctional relationship,
Mm-hmm.
I can look at people's pictures
And know when they okay. Can I tell you that has
I be wanting to inbox people be like, bruh, just let's
to
talk because this is not, I can see through the post.
I
can read through your captions and I'm like, you are miserable and I just want to help you.
But you know what I say that is 2 things and then we done for real. But let's go on that first. I remember my grandma used to always say, when you deliver from something, you always see it, like you can see it. So like if you were a liar, you can tell when someone's a liar. When you are, whatever that deliverance is. I don't know what it is now. I can be in church and see a couple and be like, y'all ain't happy. Or on Facebook, them things be scrolling, they be like, oh baby, like he don't want you, or y'all are not in love. But like you were saying, balance. I didn't know balance until I got out of my divorce. And that was one of the things he complained about, was like, she was too church, which I was. Now when I think about the stuff that I do now, I'd be like, oh my God, this is all he wanted, was me to understand that there was life outside of working in ministry, doing ministry, always being in church. And now it's like, I feel bad a little bit because of who I am now that I worked for. I feel like, dang, he didn't get to experience who Dejanay was. Because I don't know who that person was back then. Like now I'm this person.
That's who you were. Right. And that's the thing. Like I did not, and in my book, I talk about this a little bit in terms of I did not really become a man until I became a father. Like I became a father after I was married, but I didn't really become a man until I had those babies. And that's when it changed for me. That's when I was like, you know what? I don't want them as women to succumb to relationships like this. And sometimes staying in unhealthy relationships for the sake of kids is the worst thing you can do, because what you do is show them normalized dysfunction. And that's why I was like, my babies are young, they can recover. But sometimes kids can't recover. You 14, 15 years old, and your parents have been living like this your entire life. You transfer that dysfunction. And I didn't want my kids to grow up like that. I wanted them to see their father and their mother happy and loving. And you can't stay for children, because your marriage is not built on children. And if you can't connect, you can't stay for the kids. Staying for the kids is the worst thing you can do if it's not meant to be.
I'm not going to say thank God, but I think everybody on here knows we lost the baby. Perfectly normal, just went through labor. And I think about now, if I would have never went through that strength, I would stay. If I would have had a kid, I would have stayed. I would have still been married. So I don't know if that was God's like, okay, I'm gonna to let you know you can have a baby. But let this be your warning. Like you need to, and you're leaving with no strings attached. Like you don't have no strings. But I definitely know if Layla would have lived, I would have still been married. I would have still been.
And then you would have created a sense of chaos and unhappy because of the fact of the child. Sometimes God will save us from that stuff, because it's just like it's a bad situation to do that and not be able to live, because you're living but you're not really living.
I don't think the people want us to get off, but we're coming back next week.
Putting the kids in adult situation. That's right. You put the kids, and then you can't stay because of them. Kids will recover. They are resilient and they will recover. But don't stay. Oh, well, my baby's they're gonna be in college in 5 years, so I'm just gonna stick it out. If it's a no, it's a no across the board, whether they 15 or 3.
Leave. Okay, y'all, for real. Next week. Oh, because y'all keep speaking on hot topics.
Sorry, Gracie. Next week,
8 p.m. we are coming on with the consequences of I do. And we just going, oh my God. Okay, y'all can stop writing, y'all.
So read these comments. And y'all reshare this and comment even after the live, so we can
see it.
Bring some stuff back. Yep.
And definitely inbox us with y'all stuff so y'all don't lose it for next week. So Pastor Langston has something to work with, because this is good. I learned a lot. Like, this is good. I want to join. This is good. Yes, come on.
Come on in.
Now
we can bring you in.
Adding people. So you saying you want to be on for 3 weeks straight?
Leash she's gonna have a lot of good stuff to say.
I think that it's going to Leash. Send me a picture, because I'm going to create a flyer so we can repost.
And answer your questions too.
and answer all your questions. Yes. I'm going, Ashley's, I'm going to send a book of questions. All
Actually,
right,
come
so
on, we ready. We ready for it.
this was a great night. Part 2 next week, the consequences of I do. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. This is DJ Dominique with the Unspoken D word. I can't say thank you for my guest because we're gonna see him next week, y'all. I love y'all so much. Thank y'all for tuning in. See y'all next Monday.